Next question.
Hi, my name is Carlos de Andrade. I'm from Vison Digital. We produced quite a lot of music for a long time, and we've synced a song with FIFA Soccer 2010, nice. Which was an interesting experience. The money was not, I mean, it's a AAA, but it's not, it was not really there.
Yeah.
And we also produce video games live in Brazil.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
For Tommy Talarico.
Yeah, Tommy Talarico and Jack Wall.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Jack has left now. Yeah. But Jack's a big composer of these songs, of these scores for, you know, the gaming industry. So my question to you is, at that time, we sold the sync rights, okay? They placed it on the FIFA Soccer.
So
and
you did a work for hire, or was it a license?
No, actually, it was a license.
Okay.
So we sold the rights for that. Publishing and for the mechanical.
Yeah, master.
And then they put this out. It sold, I mean, I think the first outcome was 12 million copies or something.
The game
like
itself.
Yeah, the game itself. So it was huge. Now, there was a lot of requests for the disc of the game. However, they did not have a royalty-based agreement with us or with anybody else.
Right.
Anybody else.
You're talking about, when you say a disc, you mean the soundtrack?
Yeah, the soundtrack,
okay.
exactly.
Right.
They wanted the soundtrack, not the disc. I'm an old guy, you know. I still refer to the round thing with the hole in the center, you know. So, you know, that's what it takes when you're 32 years into this industry. So what happened at the end of the day is that they gave up because they had to go and renegotiate percentages with everybody else. Do you see it as a next step forward to establish a sync right value for the license plus an additional royalty in case this comes into place?
Absolutely. To your point, I can tell you why that was an issue, which I'm sure they told you, or maybe they didn't. But whenever, so we publish a big game which is meaningless down here, but it's called Major League Baseball for, you know, American baseball. When you do a deal with a league and with the Players Association, just like you would do a deal with FIFA and the FIFA Players Association, they require a royalty, a gross royalty on, not a net royalty, but a gross royalty on every ancillary exploitation of their asset. So if you want to sell a FIFA soundtrack, irrespective of whether FIFA had anything to do with putting the soundtrack together, you have to pay them a gross royalty on the soundtrack sale. So while they have to pay, especially because they don't own your asset, they just license it. If they have to pay the mechanical and any other payments to the artists, plus they have to pay a gross royalty to FIFA and the FIFA Players Association or Major League Baseball and the MLBPA, it's a loss because we're not making any money. So we could sell a soundtrack and say it's a soundtrack to a baseball game, right? But if we want to say it's the MLB soundtrack, we have to pay Major League Baseball. And the royalty required of us to pay them on top of the royalty we're paying out to all of you guys, or something's being paid out to all of you guys, makes no financial sense. So that's the rub with a game like FIFA. With a game like Gran Turismo, where we own all the trademark and marks and rights associated with the product, putting out a soundtrack is much more reasonable because we're not paying a gross per unit royalty to a third-party entity that had nothing to do with the soundtrack itself. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I fully see what you're saying, but the thing is, the beauty of royalty-based money distribution, actually, is that unless you're paying over 100% royalty, then you're not really making any money. If you're paying like 60, 70% royalty, you're still making 30%.
Well, you'd say we're making 30%, but we also have to pay a gross royalty to the FIFA party.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, if they are making, let's say, if they demand a 50% royalty over your gross, right, and your gross will still leave you an extra 50% that maybe you want to give 20% or 30%, 25% to the music holders, and you will still keep 30 to 25%.
I was going to say, and then we should wrap this question up. But I was going to say, that's a very good point. But I would also say, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, it's not just the gross that you have to pay to FIFA, it's also the marketing and production and all the other costs that you have in developing the game and the soundtrack.
Right, and part of what I've been pushing towards making this more feasible is eliminating physical distribution for these soundtracks. There's no P&D, there's no breakage, there's no delivery, there's no retail wholesale markup. And we've done it in certain instances where it doesn't involve a league. I can't speak for FIFA because that's not my game, that's EA's game. Right. But I can say that when it gets to the point of investment for a game company, the point that PlayStation usually makes when it comes to selling music that we don't own is we're a game company. We're not a music company.
And that's a very good point. So let's focus on, I would say, from your point of view, Gran Turismo, awesome. Let's sell all the soundtracks we can. Yeah. The same with all the Sony Computer Entertainment
all the score-based properties. Yeah,
exactly. Right, exactly, and that makes sense. Now, I wanted to follow on to something else that touches upon the original scores that you have. From a pure A&R perspective, in terms of working with the artists who are doing the scores, do you work with them in terms of promoting their work, in terms of building their profile up?
Absolutely. Sorry. Absolutely. I just finished a big game this last year with all original music from an artist named Beck and Deadmau5. So both did original music for this product, and we did a bunch of different tie-ins with them where they, released the music. We released the music on vinyl, and then it was released in the game, and we did different types of cross-promotional, assets and opportunities where we did, appearances and sponsored performances and things like that. So I look to do as many of those types of things as possible.
That's very cool. So let's break out Deadmau5 for a second, and use that as an example of what could happen with you if you worked with Sony Computer Entertainment for an original score. So when you've had him write some original work, or produce some original work for a game, what was the kind of promotion specifically? Like you did offline promotion in terms of events, appearances that he was at, concerts, sponsorship, etc. What was how take me through the steps.
All of that. So ultimately, we worked with him on 2 different properties. He created music for this game, Sound Shapes. We did an advertising campaign, a small sort of digital video advertising campaign. We were present at a bunch of his different concerts and events. We co-branded and sponsored his North American tour. I think he just did Lollapalooza Chile a couple weeks ago. And we sort of found ways to partner with him on, creating fan-based interaction, things where we were able to utilize his fan base. Because, the game that we did music with him for was a very small indie game. And it was a music-based property where we were interested in getting his fan base interested in interacting with his music in a way they weren't used to. So we did a bunch of integrations with his website and different types of promotion assets that he's already got in place. So it was a sort of a win-win for us, and it was an interesting project for him to get new music into, because it's basically a platformer that allows users to pull apart his music and reorganize it with the assets of different artists. So
that's very cool. Yeah. It's very cool. So I wanted to take the last 10 minutes here, and please, if you do have questions, raise your hand and we'll get to you. I want to take the last 10 minutes here to talk about the next 3 years. The next 3 years, I think, as I said at the beginning, are an unprecedented opportunity for Brazilian rights holders to get into the international market. And I guess we'll talk specifically to Sony Computer Entertainment, and then let's talk really about the game industry and the world in general. Yeah. What are you guys doing? Okay, FIFA is basically owned by EA, so you guys aren't really in that, even though it's going to be on your platform.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing in terms of the Olympics? Is there anything there? Is there anything planned?
From a hard game perspective, no, but Sony and PlayStation were big sponsors of the last World Cup. I have a feeling we're going to be big sponsors of the next World Cup as well, which obviously is impactful.
Right.
And we've sponsored Olympic parties and different assets in the past. I'm unclear as to what our plan is for the Olympics upcoming here, but I see it, we've done various different types of Sony corporate and PlayStation by extension has done various different types of song-based activations for the U.S. market to get, I mean, because, you know, football is massive down here, and it's getting bigger in the States, thank God, but they're looking for ways to sort of, both Sony and, you know, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce are looking ways to make the World Cup and the Olympics and that whole experience much bigger down here. And as a Sony branded property, whether it's exploiting a new platform like PlayStation 4 or upcoming movies or upcoming electronic properties, we're going to be doing more activation and outreach that way. So.
Okay, well that just totally makes sense, that Sony will probably be involved in terms of promotion, in terms of using music specifically for what they're doing on Sony Computer Entertainment side for the World Cup as well as the Olympics.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question, oh, right there, go ahead.
This observation is very important to me because for the past 28 years I've been focused on selling Brazil to the outside world. Yeah. Okay, we're a very self-contained country. We consume 85% of Brazilian content in Brazil. Okay, this is our industry. However, working abroad, and mainly with the U.S., where I lived for some time, I worked with a radio personality up in Chicago, Scott Adams, and this guy, he has a very interesting look at the Brazilian market because he does something called Sounds of Brazil. Now, Sounds of Brazil is not Brazilian music only. It's what Americans understand as being Brazilian-oriented music. Right. It might be like Cuban music, but it's still, they still understand this as a Brazilian music. Now, this is where you come into place big time. Music supervisors are the kind of people that actually directs the eyes and the ears to a certain audiovisual content. And this certain audiovisual content frames the music that is going to be actually exported and visualized by many, many people and memorized by many, many people around the world. How would it be, or wouldn't it be advisable that music supervisors from the US and from other countries, you know, like France and England maybe, come in to Brazil and actually work with us to develop content that would transpire to your markets? Because it's very, I mean, I can do the best music, Brazilian music in the world, but it will still be Brazilian. And Americans only consume what America does. If you want to,
I don't know if that's true.
I would disagree with that.
I don't think that
too.
Americans
well, really don't.
I tell you, I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
You said two things here that you had two pitches. One for timeless music, and you choose Bonde do Rolê. Come on. Bonde do Rolê is the most timed thing in the world, but you still hit.
True.
You still hit. It's a great song.
Yeah.
You still hit. And then you say, I don't want a dated song for this game here.
Right.
And then you go with something like Ai Se Eu Te Quero or something else like this. I mean,
That wasn't my game.
Him.
Oh, the other one for the Gran Turismo, for GT.
Not Bonde de Rolê. I don't know.
But
okay, let's wrap this up.
Real quick, what I mean is that you went in a. I mean, if I was given this task, I would choose something completely different, but it wouldn't hit your market,
right?
Because you have an understanding of your market,
right?
And an outside look at our music. Your vision is super important to us.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. Yes, just go ahead real quick.
Sorry, your name again, gentlemen? Carlos, from the point of view of trading Brazilian music in the international market, I have been living outside Brazil for 23 years in the United Kingdom. The music I think is in Lost, My Life as Liz, One Tree Hill, Nokia, Claro, Kia, UEFA, Heineken, you name it, we've got it. These guys all over the place. So we set up out in Brazil to do that, as you were saying, rightly saying maybe, at your opinion, you know, people not paying attention. I think it's your job and my job, not their jobs, to show them what is marvelous about this place and how much music is here. I have a recent experience where I sing a song, which is in Brazil now, UEFA, sponsored by Heineken, the Trophy Tour. I signed a guy from Bahia. Nobody knows the guy. He's from Bahia. I'm surprised as a Brazilian that we don't know the music from Bahia. I'm surprised we don't know the music from Zeca Fofinho, the guys from Recife in São Paulo. I'm surprised that in Brazil there's no radio play. So we couldn't ask or blame any other nation for not listening to what we have, because we ourselves are so into our own thing that the radio stations don't play. That's not a matter for me or for you. I agree with that. It's just that you and I have to join forces. I have an agency. You're welcome to that. The agency is award-winning, all that blah, 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 that you want to have it. And we are here for that, to try to show you a way to give music to these guys in a way they don't understand. So if you go to my site, you see Francis Haim, but you also see Drew Magic. Drew Magic has songs in many different games. I guess you have to work harder at getting them to understand than telling them that they don't understand.
Now,
that's the point I'd like to make it to you personally.
I work tightly with music supervisors around the world already. What I'm saying is that for the whole of our market, you know, it's for the whole of our market, because we work. I mean, me and Luciano work with ABMI. I mean, I'm not talking about myself. I mean, I've sold millions of copies in the U.S. already.
We have to learn and get together and
Absolutely.
See,
the reason I asked for the metadata, Carlos, just to make the point again, my first question, I was very surprised. I picked up 2 CDs from 2 credible record companies from this conference, put on my CDs, and they said track 1, 2, and so on. And my company, the thing I care most about is the metadata.
Guys,
The only thing I care is to serve these guys
I'm
the way
gonna-
they need to be served.
I'm going to wrap this up in a second.
absolutely, I
No, but
apologize.
I think you guys both made great points.
Understood,
You
Mark.
have to find
The
a way
point I
to
was
get
making,
it there.
The point I was making to Carlos is exactly that. I was just, from the point of view of an agency, an international one, saying, hey, Mr. Hartzroder, who already is very experienced, I'm sure, there is ways to do that. We are one of the 40 other boutiques around the world that get to these guys often. Thank God for that. You know, we have common friends. We already figured that yesterday. So we have to, create something that they understand. And music, Brazilian
Yeah,
music.
that's
I mean, we are
part
winners
of
here.
why I came
It's
down
all
here.
winnings.
Part of why I came down here was exactly the point that you're making. There's more than one person can possibly go through. And the point being that I need, the reason why I came down here to go to various different places is to get that kind of exposure. I mean, there's only so many hours of the day, and there's 50 different regions that have to be covered in that game. And by the way, the game came out in 2006, 2007. So while I'm working on the new one now, what's valuable for me, because I know there's going to be a region in this game that's representative of this area, is to be here and to talk to you guys. So I understand. I wasn't trying to be offensive in saying that I got some sort of timeless moment that okay. Oh, okay. 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 Yeah. I think in that instance, because it was something that came through a relevant U.S. musical force and Mad Decent and Diplo, that I was able to say, okay, this is something that is hip and cool at that moment that was going to help us sell the product. That leaves 25% for the rest of us. We got to find a way to get out there, and that's why we're here.
Actually, it leaves 15%. It's 85%.
85, sorry.
15's still pretty good. So we're going to have to wrap it up now. We're running over. I mean, I don't mind running over. I could go until 7, but you guys are probably tired of us by now. So I was going to ask, just to leave the audience, what are the top 3 things in your mind that rights holders in Brazil can do to get in front of music supervisors in the next 3 years when people are actually paying attention?
What I can say is your point was incredibly important. Metadata and metadata tagging for products that are available is essential. The second is understanding who you're pitching to and when you're pitching. A lot of the games I make are annually iterative. They come out every year at around the same time. And if you can extrapolate a year back or 9 months back, you know when I'm working on that title. And if I get a targeted pitch, i.e. somebody saying, one of you guys saying, hey, I know you're working on X, whatever this game is right now, because it's 9 months before the actual release date, because it comes out the same time every year, I'm much more likely to use your music rather than you send me a piece of music when I'm working on something completely different. That's an important asset, whether it's for a TV show I'm working on, or a video game I'm working on, or a film I'm working on. Those are more difficult to target pitch, but through aggregators like Mark's company or The Orchard or various other companies, they're able to get to me and get me what I want. But for games, there's a lot of simple guesswork that you guys can do on the internet without access to any kind of sync agents whatsoever.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, you know when the release is not Gran Turismo necessarily,
Right.
but you know when the releases
There's a
are
bunch
coming
of other
out for
games we
most
do
games.
that, yeah. So.
Yeah. All right, and with that, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Really fantastic. And thank you guys so much. It's really great for you to have us here. Obrigado.
Amanhã eles vão estar por aqui, então quem quiser trocar uma ideia, conversar, trazer material, eles vão estar circulando por aqui o dia todo, tá? E amanhã a gente começa um pouco mais cedo para quem quiser entender um pouco do mercado norte-americano. Às 9 horas, o presidente da A2IM vai apresentar, vai fazer uma palestra aqui sobre especificamente o mercado norte-americano. Depois a gente começa com as palestras no auditório, amanhã vai ser no auditório às 10. E aqui a gente vai ter apresentação de serviços e plataformas digitais. E de manhã cedo tem a workshop do YouTube, que estava bastante concorrido, inclusive. Boa noite a todos, obrigada pela presença, até amanhã.